All right, now that you've learned how to fold an origami heart, we're going to start on the somewhat more difficult Origami Rose. Now, as you see, I've made several here, so it's actually easier to see all of the folds in the plain colored ones. So you'll see they twist and turn, they've got curled little leaves and all of that stuff. We can do them with the pattern ones as well, just to give it a little bit more texture and visual interest. But that's what we're going to be making. We're going to start with our plain color. Now, again, if you remember from our heart, we always want to be folding so that the white is on the inside. This breaks a few of those rules, sorry. But if we turn it over like this, the first thing we're actually going to do is diagonal folds. We're going to fold corner to opposite corner to make nice little triangles. And we're going to do this both ways to again divide our paper into 4 quarters, except for instead of squares, this time they will be triangles. And again, this one especially, making your creases nice and clear is going to be very, very helpful as you go along. All right, so when we open it up, we should be able to see 4 quadrants, I guess, for lack of a better word, 4 quarters. This time is triangles. Now we're going to do the hamburger and hot dog folds again, but this time we are going to do them so we're folding the color inside. So, the best method for this one is to always make sure your corners line up, because that's going to make things, again, easier in the long run. All right, so when you pop it open, you should have 8 triangles clearly folded on your paper. Now the reason why we did some folding the white in, some folding the color in, is because what we want to do now is we want to fold these side triangles inward, like this, and like this, so that at the end you have a nice little triangle, but you've just folded them inside. So you're almost making like a little 4-point compass. But we're going to flatten it down into this triangle. And again, reinforce these creases because it's going to make everything so much easier as we go along. Now that you're here, take one of these corners. You don't want to take both layers of corners, just one. And you're going to fold it up to this top point of the triangle. And it should line up with your center crease. You're going to crease it right down there. Same thing on the other side. Once you have it set up like this, you're actually going to take these top corners again, just the top layer, not both. You're going to fold them down, back down to the bottom. So you're effectively folding that triangle in half. Now once you have them like this, it shouldn't make it look like a big pop-out diamond almost. You're going to take one of these, you're going to pop it open like this. You're going to pop it open and then you're going to flatten it down so that it makes a square. Same thing on the other side. Pop it open, flatten it back down. Now when you're doing this, make sure that make sure it pops open all the way in the corners so that when it goes down nice and flat. In your kit, there will be a little tiny dowel like this. So if you're having hard getting in there with your fingers, feel free to kind of use this to push the paper out to make sure that your folds are nice and clean. So now that we have these 2 squares with a little triangle on top like a little house, we're going to flip it over to the other side and do the whole thing all over again. Corners up to the top. Top down to the bottom. And then pop them open to make little squares. And again, don't forget to reinforce every fold by going over it again with your fingernail. It just makes it easier. So now it should look the same on both sides. Whatever side you pick doesn't really matter. You're gonna take this top part of your little house, you're gonna fold it down into the middle. So it looks almost like a little envelope. Ta-da! Now you're gonna turn it so that it's facing you, and then you're actually gonna turn it like this so that the folds kind of accordion up, you know, facing up while the point is pointed back towards your body. This is where it gets a little bit tricky. So you're going to take it, you're going to scooch it like this, so now it's pointing to your left or right, I guess either or doesn't really matter. And you're going to come into the center like V. You're going to try and put your finger all the way down into that V, into that pocket as far as it'll go, so that you can hollow it out and make it almost look like it's a little cone. Again, you can use your dowel to make sure you get all the way down into the corner, because sometimes it's hard to make it do that with your finger. And once you've got it all sorted out, you're going to flatten it down. So what was a little cone, a little funnel, is now going to lie flat like a triangle, like so. And again, reinforce those folds. Then we're going to spin it. We're going to do the exact same thing on this side. So again, if we have it up like this, you can see there's a little pocket. Get into said pocket and flatten it down. You want to make sure it stays a square. Don't let it come unfolded on you. Reinforce. So it should look like this on the bottom. Now if you flip back over to the colored side, we still have this little house part that we folded down over one side. We're going to fold it back down over the other side, just so that it's creased evenly in both directions. And you bring it up straight like this. Now, if you can see, there's also little pockets on this one, on both sides like this. You're going to open this pocket up. It's going to lift up one of your squares. Your goal is to make it so that these two become one and a side. So it's actually going to fold right along this little diagonal crease that you made earlier. You're going to flatten it down, and you're going to make sure that this crease that's keeping it up, keeping it pointing up, is nice and steady. So just kind of fold it down a little bit either direction what you need to get it to stay standing vertically without issue. Then you're going to come to the other side, do the exact same thing. And this will create kind of the 4 points of a compass, but on top now of a colored square. So now that you have this, this is the most intimidating part. Please don't be intimidated by it. It's one of the easiest steps. You're going to cup it in your hand like so. You're going to grab this point and you're just going to twist. Clockwise versus counterclockwise. I recommend going clockwise. It makes your folds a little bit easier. You might feel like you're ruining the whole thing. You're not, I promise. Fold it up, try and make it go tight, and then let it come back down. Now it's going to look a little bit funky for a second, especially if your compass rose isn't folded down as strongly as mine was. As mine should have been. There we go. But now you can see there's a little bit of curve in it. Now these four corners are going to become the petals of your flower, these little curved parts. So you're actually going to take your dowel at this point and use it almost like a curling iron and curl the corners of the paper around it. Now it might look like a really intense curl, but as you continue to fold and twist it, it's going to loosen up and get a little bit more stable, a little bit more realistic. Yep. So you want to curl all four down as best you can. If they're not perfect, that's fine. No two flowers are exactly the same, so it's just speaking to authenticity. I'm folding all mine back up along this crease just to give them a little bit more volume. And I'm going to continue to twist. A way to help with the twist is actually, because once it twists, you want it to kind of stay in this flower shape. Pinch the bottom, pinch that middle bottom part just a little bit in every direction. It'll help your flower to maintain its shape as you bring it up. Now, the more intense you want your curl to be, all you need to do is just, once you've got it in that kind of cupped shape, is just hold it there for a while. And that's going to help it maintain. Now, it will never just hold this curled unless you sprayed it with liquid starch or something. We're not doing that. I'm not doing that. You can do whatever you want. But as far as, like, now I've got it to a place where I feel pretty good about it. It might not look great now, but this is why we include your dowel. You can actually mount it and use some tape to make it look a little bit more like an actual flower. So I use hot glue, spin it around, curl it up just a little bit so I get that same shape as before. And you're not going to need a lot of hot glue, just a little bit. Too much will actually bleed through the paper and make a big mess. So just a dot, more or less, of hot glue. Then you're going to take your dowel and you're going to stick that right in that hot glue. Now again, you kind of want to maintain the shape as much as you can. So if you have two people, I mean, you came to date night with somebody, hopefully they'll help you. They can even hold it while you hold the dowel in place, and you just want to wait for this glue to dry so that it holds it up in a straight shape. If you let it go, your dowel's going to droop and you're going to have a wonky flower, which I mean is fine. If that's what you're going for, that's what you're going for, by all means. Who am I to tell you how to live your life? Okay. So now that we've got it glued on there to kind of help it, again, keep its shape and stay up there, you can still curl it while it's up here, while it's glued on. You can still do that. It'll help bring the shape back up. One of the last things I do is I use colored tape. Now with some of the pattern ones or some of them that were green already, I used like this kind of gold fancy tape. Sorry, we didn't include any tape in the kit. I don't want to tell you what kind of tape to use, but this is just to help it look a little bit more like a flower. So today I've got just green duct tape, which you can find at Walmart if you want it. I think you can also find it at like Walgreens and places like that. And I just cut it into small little strips. And from that, I'm going to take my flower. Again, going to just reinforce some of that curl, reinforce some of these corners, some of that natural flowery shape. Reinforce it a smidge. That corner doesn't want to cooperate with me. You know what it's supposed to look like. Then you're going to come out on the bottom. You're actually going to help it, again, get into that diamond shape, and you are going to tape it. Now you actually do want to get the tape on the paper, not just on the dowel. It's easier to start with shorter strips and then work your way up to longer strips. This will actually make it look like, you know, there's leaves kind of coming up and assisting with the bloom, I guess, making it look a little bit more like a natural bloom. Yeah. So as you work on it, again, easier with shorter strips than it is with longer strips at the beginning, just to establish a good base. And the tape's not going to lie perfectly flat. It's going to curl in and around itself. That's fine. So once you feel like you've got the tape kind of in a good place around the base of your flower, you can start working your way down the dowel to again help create kind of that illusion of, look, it's a real flower. You did it. So, and then at the end you should have a little bit of a stem, and you've got your rose. You can make it, now we have several pieces of origami paper in there. If you prefer these, you have enough to potentially make a little bouquet, and look how cute it is. And then, you know, and this will last forever. You know, your beloved won't throw it out after 3 days when it starts to wilt and look sad. It'll last forever, which is kind of nice. So that's how you make an origami rose. You did it. Very proud of you.